that's the one thing I kind of like about Andrew Luck. Again, I'm talking about a guy who's goofy, but he knows what he's doing. For the most part, he's relatively smart with the football. Obviously made, several mistakes today, but as like I said, he's still learning. But, he's been able to torch a couple good defenses, over the past couple of years here. Obviously, you don't make it this far into the playoffs, in your first couple of years in the league without having some kind of talent. And I do like the fact that he is a little bit more of a risk taker. Obviously, you don't want him to be like a Jay Cutler kind of guy where he's just, constantly, overthinking where he's able to put footballs. But he does take those risks here and there, and I think that eventually that's going to pay off. It's just like I said, matter of finding him that running game, and when it comes down to Peyton, that's an interesting situation. I would like to see him come back for another year and kind of see what happens. But I think that was from what I understand, speaking to a couple of people from Denver, was that a big part of John Fox leaving is that it was a mutual thing where like he came to Elway and just let him know, like, hey, listen, I just don't think that we can kind of, proceed going, down this route in terms of, sure, he may have had a couple years left on his deal, but the situation, ultimately revolves around Peyton. You know what I mean? So if Peyton has one more year left and things don't work out good for John Fox, well, guess what? See you later, John Fox. And so, I think that's why he took the initiative, to go out there and say, you know what? I'm going to get this while I can, find the right situation, you know what I mean? And good thing for the Bears and, having Ryan Pace, to take as much control of the situation as he did. But, that's what it really comes down to is, it was Peyton being as robotic as he is, and kind of having everything calculated for himself. It's still, I don't think it's a good situation, for him necessarily to return to Denver just because, there's a lot of things that are in flux. Again, it's still, he had a little bit more of a run game, but, he tired out towards the end of the season, and that's what I think you saw, end up kind of biting him in the butt there in the postseason, to be honest with you.
Who, with Peyton Manning, how much do you think it affects with what Brady did today? How much of the perception on Manning how much of his perception goes down because of what Brady did to the Colts today?
Yeah, no, I mean, 100%. I mean, you got to think about it this way. Just kind of myself looking at the situation, watching the Denver game and kind of rooting for Denver. You know what I mean? Just saying, you would like to see Peyton, do well, and what you would think would be one of his, final seasons here. And just for as great as a quarterback as he has been, you want to see him walk out with more rings. In particular over his brother, but. When it came down to it, I ended up losing that game and just, throwing the interceptions and didn't look like himself. I know he was injured, but that was just, I don't know. It was rough watching the outcome and just kind of thinking that, in my own head, I'm thinking, why can't he just not, win a big game? You know what I mean? And get to the Super Bowl. And, obviously he's done it once, but, he should have done it, many more times than he has. And so, seeing something like that happen, I think, it might not necessarily, knock his legacy. I mean, we see how, many people love Dan Marino and everything else. But when it really comes down to it, people are going to understand that, when it was a big game, it just, for whatever reason, he just didn't show up.
Right now, who do you like in the Super Bowl after seeing these two games?
Yeah, it's honestly it's a phenomenal matchup. Just knowing that how successful the offense of New England has been, especially now if they're going to rediscover their run game and kind of commit to that a little bit more, keep it a little bit more balanced. That's probably going to help them out. Quite a bit. And like here's the one thing. Okay, so now. In games where Brady has dropped back at least 80% of the time, okay, so when they get away from the run, they end up going 4-59, okay, and that's including the playoffs, and that's just not a good thing. They do need to come back to that, so they need to get back to, like I said, keeping a balanced offense, and then I think they'll be able to kind of neutralize that Seattle defense is just so stifling. It's just very, very tough to keep up with them and kind of find holes. But, there was a couple times today where Brady had plenty of time in the pocket. They dominated today, and that was all about having a very well-rounded team. And a lot of that kind of started with them, initializing their run game. And I think that will be enough. I mean, we're going to see what's going to happen with, with the injury to the secondary there in Seattle. And so if that ends up, not being, that big of a factor, I think it's still going to be tough, for Richard Sherman to kind of deal with something, especially if it's in his elbow or his forearm. I'm not sure exactly what the diagnosis was on that. But if he's hurt, they're going to have issues because they attacked him pretty hard, and you got to think for as seldom as people do go to Richard Sherman's side, if you consistently, target him and wear him down, that opens up everything else.
Well, we're going to go ahead and take our first break of hour number 2. We'll be back with Johnny Maloris from Windy City Stars here on LateNightSportsRadio.com.
Who the hell can wait till morning? Talk now at LateNightSportsRadio.com.
Welcome back to the Bob Sullivan Show here on LateNightSportsRadio.com. If you'd like to call in, the number is 585-633-7487. I'm joined again by Johnny Maloris of WindyCityStars.com. Johnny,
I feel like I have to interrupt you for a second, Bob. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Oh,
Because for those of the listeners that may have listened to the whole show, you would realize that I repeated the rejoin on that.
You did.
I did. And the reason was because Maloris distracted me during the break.
Yeah,
I have a lot of thoughts, dude. Big dreams, big things are happening. So I got to talk your ear off sometimes.
So I just wanted to explain why we're not lazy here.
And there was also the question that nobody knew what the hell the question was before we came back.
All right. Well, that's it. I'm sorry I interrupted. I just had to explain. So go ahead, carry on.
So which question did everybody miss here?
Well, your talk about Skype and putting up pictures
The
of
graphics,
people
yeah.
or something.
The graphics, I just wanted to make sure that when I run my super awesome professional podcast here, that I can get, some sufficient graphics so you guys can find your guests, okay?
Oh, yeah. So
Tell people
so
when you
Keith
see
doesn't-
stars. Half the time I'm working for a different website. You don't know what the hell you're saying.
All right. Well, let me get back into the NFL here.
Yeah.
Super Bowl. What do you do Super Sunday, Johnny? Or do you call it Super Sunday? What do you call it?
I call it Sunday. And normally what I do, go ahead.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, yeah. Well, hey, that's fine. You can interrupt your guests if you want, but that's something I won't be doing on my show. So for anybody who wants to tune in on Thursday night starting, I think it's the 29th, from 9 to 11, I will not be interrupting my guests. That's not what I do. But maybe I can't stop Bob from doing that. For whatever reason, I need to find a mute button. I don't know. Can we work that through Skype, Keith? Where I can just, mute Bob whenever needed? Can I do that?
No, I am your Skype overlord in this setup.
Son of a gun. I need to, at least have you on, immediate, text out. Dude, just mute him. Mute him, please.
Well, yeah, you got me and Bob communicate through Skype IMs.
Oh, you can do that. Look at this. I'm new to the Skypeage, so this is gonna be fun for everybody.
And rule number one, we don't call it Skypeage.
Skypeage, Skype it up. But what it comes down to, Sunday Super Bowl. No, I usually I'll do my baseball thing in the daytime like I normally do, and then I'll come back and I'll be lazy and fat and eat food like everybody else, and watch probably the football game with a bunch of people that watch football maybe 3 times a year if they're lucky. And so, that's usually what happens. And I just kind of get irritated and write my own notes, and then life goes on.
I need to ask about this because of your hair. Your hair, you got some wild hair going. As far as when somebody asks you about it, how defensive do you get?
Oh, not at all. I get it all the time. That's the thing. That people are like, oh, my God, dude, I don't want to offend you, but you have the coolest hair I've ever seen. Or I have somebody being ignorant about it somewhere. Trust me, I get it all. I hear the best of it, the worst of it. The only thing I ever ask is that no one is ever indifferent. Either love me or hate me. Don't be in the middle.
Well, because the hair, I asked somebody, they have kind of a hairdo, and I asked them about it, and they're like, what is it to you? And it's like, I don't know. You're showing up with that kind of hairdo. I think I have the right to ask.
Yeah. No, and that's what it's all about. I mean, that is my my
Don't you have the
trademark,
hairdo
you know
so
I mean?
people ask? Don't you have the hairdo so people will ask about it?
No, not necessarily. A lot of it's just that's just my style. It's my thing. And I just kind of found it. I like it. And I'm always here's the thing, man. If you see me on any given day, I can guarantee you that my socks will match my underwear, and my underwear and my socks will match my shirt. That's just fucking how it goes. You know what I mean? It's one of those things. Drop an F-bomb. Don't worry about it. But yeah, no, I'm just anal retentive like that. You know what I mean? I have an image, and it's not even like I'm putting it on for somebody. It's just how I operate. It's how my brain works. If you ever seen my notebook, you'll know I am one of the most organized people on the